to Union Square Hospitality Group to begin with?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So long journey. So I started working for Danny Meyer after I graduated college, where I received my degree in hotel and restaurant management. Graduated pretty high in my class and had the opportunity to go and chase my fine dining goals and dreams. So did an externship in Paris, speaking only kitchen French, get sort of thrown right into this really busy, very high-end restaurant, and did everything I can to be successful. I probably worked there 18, 19 hours a day when the team was, at first very much standoffish, back then. And, I was 19 at the time, and, they weren't very kind to Americans coming into their kitchen to sort of build a resume per se. And they had seen that prior, and they made that really clear with me. I don't think I needed to be scared, although I was. But I also was pretty confident that I was super green, but really, really eager and full of energy and enthusiasm. And I think it took a couple of weeks, but once I gained their trust, I was really able to learn a lot and be embraced by them. And, my French improved, my cooking improved. I was writing things down, taking pictures with bad cameras, absorbing as much as I can, and just really being enamored and just falling in love even more than I ever have with the fine dining aspect of our industry, which then ultimately came to an end, as I knew it would. Went back, graduated college, and immediately through one of my professors who had arranged the internship, asked if I wanted to meet a young and upcoming restaurateur named Danny Meyer. At that time, he owned one restaurant, Union Square Cafe, and I met him and his partner at the time, Chef Michael Romano, and had, again, ton of energy and enthusiasm. Worked there for 3 years, loved every minute of it, worked every station, went in early, stayed late, did a hell of a lot more than what I was being paid for, with nothing but joy and enthusiasm, and then wanted to move out west. At the time, San Francisco was sort of, I think the birthplace in our country for farm to table cooking. And Alice Waters and Jeremiah Tower were the chefs of the moment, and I wanted to go work for them. So Danny had helped arrange employment for me. I worked out west, worked out in San Francisco for Joyce Goldstein and then Jeremiah Tower, and it was amazing. Moved back to New York.
Let's pause there for a minute. Yeah. So I've interviewed Jeremiah multiple times. I know him on a personal level.
Okay.
And I know him as of like the last 5 years.
Yeah.
You knew him in his heyday, right?
Yeah.
Spatula in one hand, glass of champagne in the other. Right?
Well said.
I want to talk about that for a minute, because I mean, it's, there are all of these influences, and we learn good habits, we learn bad habits, and everything in between. But like, even if we just pause there in your career, you work for really big personalities, right? I think most restaurateurs, like chefs aside, most restaurateurs have big personalities, right? And like, that's what they're choosing to lead with, especially in fine dining. But Jeremiah was at the time groundbreaking, both in terms of disposition, the way he chose to run a restaurant like a nightclub, just a very different human being. When you walked away from that experience, Danny is very buttoned up and structured, and Jeremiah is more ringmaster. You walked away from those two experiences combined, and where did you see yourself falling?
That's a great question and perfect observation. Put it this way: I went back and worked for Danny. So what does that tell you? So I literally moved back to New York, and Gramercy Tavern had just opened.
Yeah.
And I said, I want to be a part of Danny again. And if he was as amazing, and if I enjoyed the time I did with him for 3 years in Union Square Cafe, which was an older by way of physical restaurant, but still at that time, the #1 rated restaurant in Zagat. It was one of the very few New York Times 3-star rated restaurants. So if they were opening then, Gramercy Tavern with a young Tom Colicchio at the helm, they were... the press at the time, or at least New York Magazine, was literally front page, dubbed them the next 4-star restaurant. So why wouldn't that be better than where I was out west? So I did that, and it was really amazing. And Tom Colicchio, the chef, ran an amazing kitchen. Very different from Michael Romano at Union Square Cafe. Even though Danny owned both restaurants, he had two chefs, incredibly talented. I learned a ton from each of them, but they ran their kitchens differently. So I learned a lot about that, as did Jeremiah. I much preferred a lot of what Tom and Michael were doing, but it was great to see different styles of cooking falling under one umbrella of, foundational French and Italian cooking using New York products, all done at a very high level, which, not to fast forward this part of your question, but that is, a big part of the foundation of the career of where I currently sit at Shake Shack. So I'm very appreciative of that time. But the common thread through that was Danny Meyer. All these years later, I'm back with Danny Meyer again. So something I like about him and how he's able to build companies and gather groups of people that are kind, thoughtful, hardworking, intelligent, passionate, and want to do good for the world.
And you have this role of VP of Culinary Innovation. And I think it's a really interesting title for what is probably a very tight structure. Most chefs crave creative freedom, and you stepped into what is probably one of the most operationally disciplined environments in the history of our industry. Just knowing how Danny likes to run a business, what did that transition for you require, from mindset to ego to leadership? How did you step into this role?
Yeah, good question. So prior to this role, I worked for Danny again at Union Square Events. Union Square Events is the catering and events business within the Union Square Hospitality Group umbrella. So I worked there for 8 years as their executive chef, and we opened new businesses. We opened a Michelin-starred restaurant in Chicago. We did premium executed many events off-site. So we would cook food in any venue that was not a restaurant, but do it with the thought and care that you would have in a fine dining restaurant at scale. Cafes in the 9/11 Museum, concepts in ballparks and arenas. Again, Michelin restaurants, catering off-site for 1,000 people, 4,000 people, catering events, seated, plated dinners for the Robin Hood Foundation every year. We catered the New York City Marathon night before pasta buffet for 20,000 people. So our sort of, we were a wide-reaching group of restaurant professionals looking to scale food in unconventional ways to mass audience. So I was always relentless in my pursuit of looking at those opportunities and saying, why can't we sear scallops for 3,000 people? We can. We just need to work a little harder, plan a little smarter, but use all the knowledge that we gained in our 100-seat restaurants. And so doing that and learning on the job as we did this and sort of refining that process eventually led me to Shake Shack when, I had conversations with our then CEO, Randy Garuti, which to say, could you, take that, knowledge, energy, and passion and sort of wrap that in burger, shakes, and fries. At first, I not that I wasn't sure I could do it, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it. I was just at that point in my career where I had ascended through my career in the same way, which is knowing one thing: I didn't want to work in fine dining restaurants anymore. I knew from just an overall compensation perspective, scale was going to take me where I needed to go. And prior to Union Square Events, I worked for Goldman Sachs for 8 years, where I cooked for thousands of people at a very high level, very similar to how I did it in Union Square Events, but for a corporate dining firm. So I was learning and growing my knowledge of refining unconventional means of cooking and hospitality. And so when I finally agreed to go to Shake Shack, I took it as the same opportunity as to sort of continue to build restaurant-style food, sourcing premium ingredients, which Shake Shack has always done, and we still do, executing it with that fine dining mentality, but doing it in a way that we can execute it consistently with teams that maybe have 17-year-old first-time employees to, more experienced teams that aren't chefs and sous chefs, and just be unwavering in my commitment to do the unconventional, which is what I've done for a large part of my career. So that's what sort of excited me about the role. As far as egos go, I'm one of these guys that's probably a little too humble, which is not a good thing sometimes, to be completely frank. But then also it does have its, benefits that I don't have to worry about checking ego at the door too much. But I'm also at the point in my career, I have kids, and, I want to see them prosper, no different than I want to see my teams here prosper. So collaborating with them, teaching them, giving back to them as people have given to me at a young age is really, really important for me. It's what sort of, kind of might sound cliche, but, getting out of bed and being a good dad is like kind of what gets me out of bed in the morning. And we've got some really great people that I work with here in our innovation kitchen. And if I can leave them a long lasting impression, then, maybe I did a good job. So that's a big part of my goal. And when we collaborate, by the way, it doesn't matter what I make. If I make it and pass that off to my team and, require them to give me feedback, the result is always a better one.
Sure.
It is. And I don't care if they have 1 year experience, no years experience, or 20 years experience. So, and I also want to sort of build some confidence within them, because I know how it is to be a 19-year-old kid walking into Paris and being an outcast initially. I had to earn their respect. Here they walk in respectfully because we want that. We require them to feel that respect. And it's also on us to make sure that they feel well respected. And we all win because of it. And it's a really good model that really comes under Danny.
Let's talk about how to add unique value. So, when I talk to new CEOs of existing organizations, or like you stepping into this role around culinary innovation, the assumption isn't that things are perfect and you're just there to make sure that their trains run on time. It's that there's room for improvement through your specific worldview, through your lens. And so, like, when you approach, and this is a wildly successful program nationally. I mean, for context, in case people are unaware, there was a call. I think it was your last quarterly call. You were the only restaurant in your tier that said that they weren't doing any discounts. They weren't going to do any freebies, and that your LTOs actually outsell, or at the time were outpacing the sale of your regular burgers and fries. So this is just a wildly successful program in a segment of the industry that is struggling by and large. So what was your approach? You came in and you said, he's doing well, but like there is area for improvement that I think falls in line with what I invest in the world at. So what was your approach when you stepped in?
Well, the good news is that we have an amazing cross-functional team here. So I'm one of the many important people in the process. So unlike a restaurant where, let's just say a down the street restaurant, 120 seats, the chef is usually, or chef de cuisine or sous chef, if that restaurant has them, could kind of take a menu item, go to the green market, go buy some fish, go buy some vegetables, some potatoes, put something together, and it's sold. You can do that. Not the case here. We have, several teams responsible for the overall execution of a new menu item. So whereas that might look as, well, culinary is making the food and they get all the credit or the blame, not the case. So my approach coming in here, knowing that, and we've since continued to build out our cross-functional teams to support our innovation, I can just focus. I think I may have made a mistake more than anything coming in, thinking that I had to do all those other things, and almost force some collaboration with other departments just to make sure that the end result would be successful. So I probably made more mistakes in that sense. We're now our team is fitted so well. Our process has improved. It's it's a little longer of a process by way of time now, because we want to ensure that everything we do has the greatest chance for success. So I'm able to stay a little bit more in my lane and focus on ensuring we have the right products, ensuring that we're able to make something really delicious, and help our operations teams ensure that we can execute it at scale. So it almost is easier of a role for me today than it was when I first walked in here 7 years ago. And we've learned so much through our time together, and we've got a lot of the same folks here before I was here, and they've since built out their teams. So I'm focusing on developing my team, continue to broaden our innovation pipeline, and do it in a way, process-wise, that has proven success. We rely on a lot of data, but we also rely on a lot of the sort of the art as well. And we use the data to help inform that art. And then we'll test products to make sure that we can execute them effectively and consistently. And we'll test them with consumers and guests to make sure that it's something they want to eat. And then we'll refine and tweak those items. And so that's kind of like been a lot of our recent success. And I'm just really excited about, where we currently are and our innovation pipeline for the future.
I want to get your 2 cents on something. So I think that the push and pull of our industry is like innovation versus consistency, right? Because like everyone in theory prizes innovation. And yet what we see by and large is the same people come in on the same days, they order the same things, they sit in the same table, and they eat it in the same way, right? That is most consumer behavior. And then on the other side is innovation. And I believe that people think they are far more adventurous than they actually are. What I advocate for with my clients is this idea of almost like an LA movie style tonal reference, where like the true recipe for culinary innovation or for like innovation around like a new restaurant concept is you take two very familiar things and you just put them together in a slightly unfamiliar way. Right.
I love that. And you're absolutely right.
And that's what gets it done. When they pitch movies, I spent 25 years in LA. And in LA, the way they pitch movies is they don't tell you the story. They say Indiana Jones meets Bridget Jones' Diary. And everyone goes, that sounds good. I'll have that. And so I guess my question is, as you look for these tonal references, are you guys looking at market trends, industry trends? Are you guys scraping social media to see what that weirdo on TikTok is eating now? Like, what does that research process look like?
All of the above. You just nailed a lot of it. I mean, we want to make sure that we're giving our guests what they want. And a lot of what they want is what they see. Now, I'll use the Dubai Shake as an example. We saw the popularity of that going back almost 3 years ago now. And when we first saw it, it's our job to be privy to a lot of those things that are happening, whether it be TikTok or elsewhere. Oftentimes I'm a little skeptical about those things because they kind of come and they go really quick. But for me, and for Shake Shack in general, we've always prided ourselves at sort of paying homage to classics, right? If you think about the best restaurants in the world now, they do the same thing, right? Everything is built from a classic. It's a reinterpretation of a classic. A beef Wellington might be a classic. People are doing salmon Wellingtons. People have done beet, the vegetable Wellingtons. And that's a great form of innovation, but the reality is, like you said, they're taking two things and putting them together. So we look at all the things you mentioned. Dubai Shake was one of them, where we launched the Dubai Shake in Dubai to some incredible success. And that was only in our Shake Shacks in a few of our Dubai restaurants. And we looked at the opportunity, and we saw the popularity was still growing a little bit. It was still really hot and buzzworthy. And of course, we would never have launched that if we didn't think the product was delicious and we didn't think we can execute it at the very highest level of what one would expect that Dubai bar to be. So that was our challenge, and we executed it well in Dubai. And then to take that stateside was another challenge for us. We have supply chain challenges to secure the right 100% pistachio paste, the Katafi. We knew we had a great frozen custard. We know we have great chocolate. So, we worked feverishly because we know that these trends come and go really quick. And we were able to execute it at scale with excellence. And, that's been really successful for us. But the other forms of innovation could just come from someone's idea. Danny Meyer could send us a text. Our CEO, Rob Lynch, could, send an email and just say, hey, I want us to focus on beverages. And we'll do some we'll put a project brief together. We'll do some idea creation. We'll do some quick screening with guests. And that'll sort of help inform, in this case, how we might want to go about a beverage strategy of innovation.
But is it, I would guess, in terms of the structure, and you are a very humble man, which is rare in this industry, and I love you for it.
Sorry.
But you are the arbiter of taste, I've got to believe, is that because it's got to come centrally from
Sure.
one person. Like it is an extension of self more than anything else. Danny's style of service is like the through line across all of the restaurants when it comes to front of house, right? Like you can smell it, you can taste it when you go in. And so as it relates to culinary innovation, ultimately, even though you will take suggestions from others, you have to be the arbiter of taste, right? Which I would assume is a lot of pressure.
It has to be delicious. Yeah.
Right.
And I have confidence in my palate. I think I have a good palate. Danny has an amazing palate, by the way. And I have a team of people here that have an amazing palate. So we have 3 separate levels of tastings that inside Shake Shack. And the first one would be a much smaller group. So that would be my culinary team and I. And there's only 5 of us. And then we have our brand team, which would be on our marketing side. They have great palates as well. So that's our first level of tastings. Palates could be off. For instance, maybe I hate pistachio and it just find the flavor vile, which I don't. I love it. There's not much I don't like. I don't know if there's anything I don't like, to be honest. But from a flavor perspective, our job in culinary is to make sure it's delicious. If not, we have to throw the flag and throw it loudly and proudly. And we will, and we do at times.
I'll tell you what I don't like: truffle. I'm pro cilantro. I'm anti-truffle. Everybody's going to fall on one side for those two things. It's just not my bag. I don't like the flavor. I will say, though, I was in love with your truffle burger. Not because I ate it, because, again, not my bag. But, what an amazing campaign. I think so much as it relates to Shake Shack's segment. It's a race to the bottom, right? How many things can I give away for the lowest possible amount? And so the consensus was, prior to, I think, all of these initiatives that you guys helmed, was that people were price conscious, when it turns out people are value conscious, right? You put truffle on a burger, there's no way you're giving that thing away at cost. There's no way it's going to cost as much as the regular burger that you sell. But there's this ideology that I heard years ago and internalized, and it's that value is not what you pay, value is what you get. And I think that few have embraced that ideology more so than you. So if everyone's talking about price sensitivity, and this is the worst economy ever, and yet somehow Shake Shack is growing by leaps and bounds in beautiful, profitable ways, what do you understand that no one else does? What are you guys getting right?
So I think in the Dubai Shake example and the truffle example, those are 2 great examples where we could probably charge more for that product. We could, but there were very conscious decisions, which was to say, and going back to truffle, that launched during the pandemic. I actually developed that in my house when we were quarantined, and then came here and did that. I remember the conversations happening at that time, which is to say, we want to make truffles accessible for the masses. And that's what Shake Shack has always done, right? From a hot dog cart to a Shack burger, we want to make it accessible. So it's going to be more expensive than the average fast food burger, but it's probably not going to be as expensive as it should be if you were to break down the cost of each fresh ingredient. So that hasn't changed. That's always been our model. And it's worked for us, and we continue to challenge and look at all opportunities. But the Dubai Shake is another example. That's under $10. Our truffle burger for the first 2 times that we sold it was $9.99. And I think the last time it was just over $10. And we use real ingredients in there. And I can tell you, last summer I went to Umbria and visited the plant and the plantation where the truffles are grown and the oil is made. And that just made me feel super proud. It's an incredible product. We'll continue to iterate on it. And so ingredients really matter to us, just like they did when Shake Shack first was the humble hot dog cart. The success of Shake Shack back then was taking premium ingredients and humbly offering them at a value. It was probably more expensive. I know it was more expensive then than the hot dog cart up the block or at Central Park.
Sure.
But it was still a value to consumers who were having it. And 21 years later, we're still doing our best to make that happen.
Let's talk about LTOs.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed. I love the idea of an LTO. And like, you look at your model, and I think it's a great model for it that advocates for that model moving forward. And Crumble, I think, it's $1 billion valuation, selling cookies that I think we can all agree are okay. And that's their thing, right? Like, their thing is that they're launching. And so, now that people have these limited attention spans, I think that LTOs really serve to remind people. My thesis is that people don't have a loyalty problem. They have a memory problem, right? As soon as they walk out the door of Shake Shack, they forget that Shake Shack exists until they drive by one again. That's just, people are busy, right? They all have spouses and children and careers and things. Like, I tell my clients all the time, like, nobody cares about your restaurant. Like, everybody cares about themselves and their lives and all of this. And so our job is to remind people that we exist in a way that is authentic, in a way that adds value to their lives. And I think one of the best vehicles to do that is an LTO, which is innovation paired with scarcity and urgency. And so because of all of those three things, you have really high perceived value. What is your approach to LTOs? If you were to high level say a successful LTO is comprised of these components, what would it be?
A successful LTO for us would drive traffic and excitement in our shacks. And that would be for our existing guests, new guests, and as importantly, and almost more importantly, for our teams. Our most successful items are the one our teams who are working in our shacks every day love. And they're the ones that are engaging with guests. So it's that easy and it's that difficult.
Right. Do you delineate? So are some campaigns focused on new customer acquisition, more so on new customer acquisition, and others are focused on frequency? Like, look, I'm a Shack Burger guy myself, right? And so for me, if I saw the LTO, I'd be like, ooh, Shake Shack exists. And then I would just go back and get my burger, which is a function of LTOs, right? Is that I show you something, but you decide to return because I reminded you that we exist. Or for the people that are in there consistently, it gives them one more reason to return this month. As you guys are architecting the specials, are you looking at those use cases and then developing around those specific use cases?
We are talking a lot more about that recently. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that play out. Right now, we want to make sure that we're comping over previous year, right? But, and Rob, our CEO, has done a great job challenging us to not only do that, but to really identify, to your point, what each of these items' goals are. Because that strategy right there could, we could launch the same few menu items over, let's say, 6 months to a year. But if we do it at the wrong time with the wrong positioning, it could be terrible or it could be amazing. So those conversations are happening. Our marketing team is, challenging us to even think about, ways that we can iterate and innovate to help support that. And so it's a real collaborative process that we hope will play out more advantageously to not just us, but to our guests. And so my job right now is to continue all the items that we've, sort of earmarked for development We have so many things in development right now. Our job is to make sure we continually make them delicious, find the products, and move it through our process. And then our partners in marketing can kind of strategize and figure out when the right time to launch it is, and what the menu is, right? So maybe it's, for example, if it's truffle, do we want to lean all in on one item, let's say a burger, and focus all of our efforts there? Could that allow us to achieve our sales goals? Could that allow us to excite guests, have them come back for repeat purchase, or do we need to support it with other items? So that'll continue to play out for us. But one thing I can guarantee is that there'll be a lot more innovation, and there'll be different strategies around how we go and support them. So I'm just super excited. Our marketing leadership has done an amazing job sort of teeing up what's to follow.
Because there's so many use cases, right? Like if we were to talk about a false equivalent, because it looks like food, but it's not, we could talk about the McRib, which is like this prolific thing. And then you look at the McRib and you say, like, there's no rhyme or reason to when they release this thing. But somebody actually did a trend report for that. I think it was like the last 5 years, the last 10 years. Every time quarterly sales are projecting down, they release the McRib. It's a thing, right? It's a lever. And so I guess my question would be, when you guys are talking internally about LTOs, I had the grace and the good luck and the good fortune to always have a marketer's mindset. So like, I don't think I was the best restaurateur ever. That's probably Will or Danny, right? But I was probably one of the best restaurant marketers, at least in my market. And I think that that's what enabled us to be successful across multiple tiers of dining. So I've always taken this approach to the business. And what I think most of the people listening lack are levers. When I am slow, how do I get busy? When I want to increase new customer acquisition, what do I do? When I want to increase frequency, what do I do? And I think that culinary innovation, not for innovation's sake, but as a lever, is incredibly effective. And so I would ask you, you've got this like massive infrastructure around you. But if you were picked up as the VP of Culinary Innovation for, a local one location restaurant in Reseda,
Okay.
how would you use culinary innovation to create interest, to remind people that you exist and why they love them? How would you do that?
How would I do that? Okay.
On a small scale.
On a small scale.
With a small budget.
To pull a lever?
Yeah,
specifically?
To create culinary innovation in a way that actually moves the needle.
Yeah. I think you probably have to do what we're doing right now, which is building a bench of items that you can quickly pull, because those levels you're speaking about need to be operationalized quickly. It's not going to be time for you to identify the need and then go execute on it. So you need to react quickly. If it's one location, obviously, it's going to be a little easier to do than if it was multi-unit. But I would create something that people are going to want. You have to do that. You can't create shock value. I mean, there are places for restaurants like Alinea, right? Those are destination restaurants that you go there expecting to be wowed and shocked and experienced. But if it is your neighborhood burger joint that you're looking to satiate some folks, you need to do something that's very relatable for them, something that they can easily identify with, but also exciting enough to get them in the door, and then over deliver on the experience. And that experience could be by way of how it's presented, how it's marketed, how it tastes, maybe a combination of all three. So that's what I would do.
And then how do you temper it with, you see innovation out there, I mean, especially in the fast casual space, where people just go way too far, right? And so you're like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, this is a completely different business. I don't know why you would launch that. And some people are known for it. Taco Bell is known for it, right? Like Taco Bell swings for the fences on every campaign. And it's just, it's all kind of, I probably wouldn't eat that, but wow. So, how do you make sure that it's consistent and it's an extension of the brand, as opposed to like a dilution of the brand or a
Yeah.
departure from the brand? What's
Yeah.
that filter?
And the filter are our core values. They have to be. It's sort of like our own internal commandments. We stand for something good. We work with amazing products. The products, need to be sourced and supplied by people we care about, the people we know, that we understand, deliver it, execute it with excellence. I think that we're not looking to shock anyone. I don't think any of Danny's restaurants, you would go in there from Gramercy Tavern, which is a 1 Michelin star, and the Modern's a 2 Michelin star. If you read their menus, it reads like Shake Shack, although the ingredients are different, right? It's guinea fowl with heirloom tomatoes and lemon verbena. There's 3 ingredients listed. Of course, when you get the plate, you have maybe multiple preparations of the guinea fowl, beautiful assortment of heirloom tomatoes, and maybe the herb is in a jus, and maybe there's a crispy herb on top of it. And so I think, and we're no different. We're going to humbly say what it is. If it's a truffle burger that has crispy onions and Gruyere cheese, that's all you're getting. And then hopefully that experience is one where, wow, the value perception of this is better than I thought it would be. The flavor is delicious. And when someone gave me my tray in the Shack, they spun the tray around. So they presented the burger to me in a way that was very much elevated. And the lighting in the restaurant was good. It was better than I thought. It's not a dark hole. And so that's sort of what we've always done. And that's where we focus on every day.
Let's look ahead. What's the internal North Star for Shake Shack's menu evolution over the next several years? Are you chasing seasonality, accessibility, premiumization, or something else entirely?
Well, the good challenge for us is Rob, our CEO, has promised lots of innovation publicly, lots of Shacks publicly, and I love that challenge. We are innovating at light speed now, different menu categories, different breads, different side options, beverage categories, desserts. All these things are going to find their way on their menu, maybe some more, some less. Nancy Combs, who's taken over our sort of culinary and brand calendar oversight. She's pretty amazing, and she's worked with Rob in the past, and she's really moving our cross-functional teams forward. So we're driving innovation at lightning speed. And Rob's been here just over a year, and Nancy not even a year. So if our development pipeline is a year and a half, I think you're going to see, I know we're going to see a lot more innovation in the future. And I'm really excited about it because, as a chef, creative chefs or someone in charge of innovation and a team that's here, all we have every day, we wake up with an idea. And we want to see them come to life at a very small scale, even if it's just for us to eat and taste at breakfast or lunch. And we do that. Now we have an opportunity to extend that through our process. It feels really amazing. So I think at 21 years young, we're kind of just getting started. And I say that humbly, but also excitedly. And so there's a lot more coming.
What should we steal from you? What are the tactics, the tools, the strategies that have served you well that you think would serve the folks listening?
People ask all the time, they ask me about Danny. I remember meeting Danny when he was working the door at Union Square Cafe every day, long before he wrote his book. And people ask me, is he the same guy, this, that, all these? And I say, you want to learn? Read his book. I mean, the blueprint is there. And I think if you read that and you go to any of his fine dining restaurants and you go to Shake Shack, you'll see similarities there that sort of, really go back to the book. And, I can only say that he wrote that book. I'm not sure exactly what his goals were at the time, but he's kind of given people a playbook to which to operate. And again, that was a long time ago and the industry has changed. So maybe one would need to evolve from that a little bit. But our core values as a company haven't changed. And I think if people were to source, just to answer your question in a different way, From a culinary perspective, I know it's hard to make really good food without really great ingredients. I can take great ingredients and screw them up, and it could be pretty good dinner. It could be a pretty good dinner. I could take mediocre ingredients, work really hard at it, and not make a pretty good dinner. So what we focus on here, no different than any of his other restaurants, is source the best possible products we can, treat it with care, season it appropriately, and execute it responsibly, serve it with kindness. And that's kind of how I want to cook at home, just like we cook here. But to do it at scale, of course, you need to, think about all the ways in which you can consistently do that.